Hello there, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of the Kite and Dart Community Coaching and Consulting Sessions. My name is Nate Ishii-Lapgard, and I will be your host and coach for the day. And I'm here with Tekla Akers and Alexis Halcovic, PH to the D. Welcome, both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So if I could get a little introduction from either of you, whoever would like to go first. This just talk a little bit about your business and how long have you in business, and so provide some context for your business for the folks that are here and the folks that are watching, if you would.
I can go.
Go for it.
So, as Nate said, I'm Alexis Halcovic, and I run an executive coaching and consulting business called, very cleverly, Alexis Halcovic LLC Coaching. And I started around the beginning of the year, and I work with people on leadership development, helping them get to the next phase of their career, working with any types of challenges an organizational leader might face during their work. So toxic managers, problems with teams, change management, culture change, diversity, equity and inclusion, and belonging. And additionally, I've been doing a lot of life planning work, as the clients that I currently have been very interested in aligning their personal values with their career and or finding balance. So that has been actually very fun. My big challenge, and the reason I'm here today, has been marketing. I've been working to develop a web presence. I've identified LinkedIn as my space for having that presence, and developing content and all of those things. But I could use some help in that arena.
Got it. Thank you so much. So glad you're here. Tekla?
Glad to be here.
I am Tekla, she, hers pronouns, and I am a Reiki practitioner and teacher. I emphasize teacher. I work in Lafayette, and I also do one-on-one sessions distance, and I teach distance. I do hybrid. I've had my business for probably about 5 years now, and it's been a wild ride of COVID and going from teaching in person and doing everything in person to moving online, which was really successful in the beginning of COVID, and then it has dwindled, and I've been dancing with like how to do my work and bring people in to do self-care. My big program is called Be Rooted in Your Truest Self through Practice and Energy Awareness. And it's a 9-month program that I've taken a break from, and I want to write a manual for it this summer and start it again in September. It combines one-on-one Reiki work and community work, group work, and circles, and learning Reiki all the way up through like advanced Reiki with a lot of practice. So the last year has been a wild ride of figuring out my business, and I'm actually in a very clear place of like what I'm offering. I feel like I have really great offerings, and the theme seems to be marketing and just getting people to commit and sign up. And how am I going to do that by September? I have like a summer program, summer special, to have people sign up for one-on-one sessions through the summer. And then I also have a longer 6-month program for people who want to work with me more intensely, more one-on-one, and not so much group work. So there you go. So I guess since it's coaching, I kind of threw in where I like am struggling too with my business.
I love this. This is marketing, and there's some timeliness to this. I struggle to call it, hesitate to call this like a post-COVID world, because it's not. It's like a with COVID world. It's a post-COVID experience, right? The experience of pandemic and the trauma that it brings, and the unfortunate circumstances that we're all affected by this simultaneously. And when we have challenges like this or events like this that affect all of us, it's hard to get perspective or context on what's happening. I had a great session with my therapist this morning, coachapist. And I'm in a very similar position in my business right now too, where there's just been a lot of unpacking. And for me, it's been a lot about being with, after 8-9 years in business, being with what it's like to be in my business newly every day, as opposed to having my business be like that, having the past be way more relevant. And so if anybody's out there that has been running an in-person business online for like 4 or 5 years, I'm here with you. I'm finally coming to terms with the fact that I have an online business, and that in order for me to operate with integrity and bring a level of difference making to the world, I need to be with the present reality of my business and not how things have been or how I want them to be or how I think they should be. And I just wanted to share that, as that's kind of where I'm coming from for sure. So we can keep it in order if that works for you, Tekla and Alexis. And we can dive right into a request for coaching around marketing, which is extremely specific. So Alexis, you're I want to call out for our audience. You have a resume that most people would die for, and have worked in different cultures, and you have navigated some very intersectional spaces. You have a tremendous resume, very experienced. And what would you identify is the 2 or 3 main challenges that you're dealing with when it comes to marketing right now?
2 or 3 challenges. So I think the first one is identifying, am I right about who my audience is my, my target audience? That's my first question. I've been thinking about, women in financial services as my target audience, senior women in financial services as my audience. And I have a suspicion that a lot of, major financial services organizations and places where I have a lot of contacts use big coaching and consulting companies to, to support the professional development of their folks, rather than individual practitioners like myself. And I'm feeling, and also recently I've talked to a couple of folks who have, what I thought looked like on paper very successful coaching businesses, and I find out working with BetterUp, and that's where they're getting most of their clients, rather than through, the old-fashioned, building your LinkedIn presence and, finding your niche and, really targeting that audience. Okay. So that's my concern is, is this like an outmoded form of coaching that I'm looking, or marketing that I'm looking at trying to do?
All right. So the first one is, am I right about my target audience? I mean, that's pretty much it, right? That's in a nutshell? Okay, cool. So how did you go about picking your target audience?
I based it on the extensiveness of my network and my resume. You know, I have 10 years working in leadership positions in financial services.
Mhm.
And I just felt like I have a lot of insight into what that culture is like, that I could, you know, that people can relate to my experience, and I can relate to theirs, and therefore it makes it a little easier, and
Yeah.
also helps me narrow things down, since I've been advised that you really need to narrow it down and not be like, I could coach everyone, you know.
Hmm. I love it. I, you know, you don't need my approval on any of this, and that's, I think, half of the equation is, and have I established my target market? And by half, I'm being metaphorical. I'm sure there's millions of different combinations here, but a big part of it is does as a consultant, does my experience, is it relevant to the work I'm trying to do with the people I'm trying to do it with in a way that they can make the connection? So obviously that's here. Is the culture of financial services unique? I mean, probably. Is it for women? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And are you a unicorn in a sense? Absolutely, right? This is not a higher echelon of leadership that's been historically populated by women. So I see a lot of really good parallels there. So with us saying that that's a perfect target market, do you want me to go down like the questioning route, which is like, what do you think is missing, or do you just want me to tell you?
Well, if you know the answer,
I do.
then
I do.
I would love it if you tell.
But whether I know the answer or not lives over there, not over here. So, you know, as most white men do, I think I have the answer. Now, have I done some research and all that? Sure. So we're talking about conversion.
Yep.
Which is a phenomena.
Yep.
Phenomenon being plural and phenomena being singular. I had to figure this out myself. And if it gets loud here, there's a lightning storm happening outside. So, and so conversion is like this magical kind of space where you know, a stranger turns into a client. Yes.
Right.
And I like to say that just because we don't know everything about it doesn't mean we don't know anything. And there's a presumption in entrepreneurship that this is something that can be understood, like fully understood. And we've been indoctrinated into that thinking for so long that it really skews our idea of how we go about optimizing conversion in our business. You know, how do we participate in this phenomena of strangers turning into clients? So you can already hear me relanguaging, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say, for hypothetically, that we live in a culture whose ideas about business are primarily influenced by, I don't know, monarchistic, colonizer, and slaveholder patriarchal thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in California, I think it was about a year ago, and I was in Santa Barbara with my wife, and I was looking around and I was thinking about the missions a lot. And the Spaniards, they didn't really care about their target audience. You were in or you were out, and that was it. Yeah. So, and I noticed this phenomenon, I know you have too, Alexis, because I think we've spoken about it, but there's this tendency to dehumanize this part of a business. And this is the most human part of a business, is this ability to say, you know, this conversation for yes or no, which is very more complicated than that, but comes down to yes or no. And so I'll offer that first and foremost, our understanding of how conversion works is it's incomplete.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to do something with Adam Smith living in his mom's basement when he wrote The Wealth of Nations. I don't know, but there's definitely a dehumanized perspective. So I offer this: the biggest predictor of successful relationships is shared values.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you, the key is to determine name your values. We call them source commitments, which is kind of like who you've been being your whole life that's led you to this choice, which is when they one glance at your LinkedIn profile, and you are a person who is driven by something other than material success.
Yeah.
Yeah, your choices have taken you to some really cool, unique places, and that shows to someone who's looking for that consciously. And that's how this works. So it's just one more niche, which is, yeah, everything you've got is totally dead on, and there's going to be a certain type of person or a certain type of organization that is going to value working with one person rather than a consultancy. That's going to want your particular flavor, your modality, which is what it will end up being. Yeah, I mean, it is already a modality, but it just, probably needs naming, as they all do at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is that, and we call this commitment-based marketing. So the key to getting conversion to work is focusing on shared commitments. So what does that mean on the court? So a lot of times, so talk is cheap, and these days it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
After COVID now, like, people have been hammering us with, pain point marketing informed by very powerful algorithms. And we spent so much more time online during the pandemic that now I believe, this isn't proven or anything, unless it is, and I haven't found it out, that my experience, my anecdotal experience is like, or my lived experience is, it's harder to find and convert leads now than it's ever been. So that being said, what are you hearing?
Mm-hmm.
That's enough white man talking.
So you said what I'm hearing, and then you said that's enough white man talking.
Yeah, I said, so what are you hearing? Yeah.
But what am I hearing? I thought you said what? Okay, sorry about that. So what I am hearing is I need to find a way to get people to understand what our shared commitments are through the online medium, which is LinkedIn, and this, and also identify companies or organizations that might have similar values to me outside of simply having the same type of experience. So I agree that, I mean, when you say it like that, it's very true. I was never a typical person in the financial services, in my financial services experience. People, this is just a kind of a sidebar, but there used to be people who would come to me, they wanted to talk about politics with me because they were, trying to get a rise out of me. But really, I find it very interesting to talk to people who have beliefs that are very different from mine. Having said that, I think that people are going to be more interested in working with me if we are very aligned in our values.
I would offer they won't work with you if you're not.
Right.
And they won't work with you if they aren't working in an organization that also shares both yours and their values. Which, this is all good though, because this is the kind of segmenting that we're talking about. So, and we're right again, so surprising, right, Karen Hibner? Alignment, but alignment in action. So as a coach or a consultant, right, and I mean, you can't combine them in a way that sounds good, but that's really what it is.
Yep.
The power's over there. And that's another drip of this colonizer shit. Like, nobody's giving you any money easily in the United States of America. I tell you that. And if you're working globally, you could tell me more. But here in the United States, we love money and we're attached to it, and ain't nobody doing no convincing. So we're not in the driver's seat of that at all. And this is another erroneous conclusion that we've come to, is that, clients move through funnels and we move them. Clients, people move under their own volition. The clients are moving through our funnels by them. They're taking the actions. We're not taking the actions. What bounces them out? Well, lack of alignment. or we like to talk a lot about consent too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I know you're sensitive to this because you're an empathetic human being who's made it in life by focusing on the needs of others as well as yours. And so what we need to do is we need to be, so I like this a lot because this let's turn it into like what there is actually to do. So we got to produce content. And then we have to have a brand, and we have to have a brand voice. And if the content and the brand voice we have doesn't have anything for anyone to disagree with, it is not going to work.
Right.
Now, the degree to which we make and the flavor of those assertions that we make inside of that content is entirely up to you. I find this a very, this has been like a hugely transformational experience for me, from just like in terms of my own journey through the DEI training that I've received, and also talking about like internalized white supremacy and all these things in a space that's not normally there. It's been a wild ride. And I'm certainly not advocating for doing it the way that I've done it, or that there's a right or a wrong, but there are some assertions that need to be made. Yeah.
Yep.
And what's cool is that if you're going to find that if you start making those assertions, you're going to demonstrate in a much better way than your credentials, your understanding of the particular needs of your particular clients, which are going to be similarly aligned individuals, more than most likely women in the financial services industry. Yeah.
Yep.
So you're good at that anyway, right? Better than you would be talking to someone who thinks that the way to solve the problems of the future is to repeat the mistakes of the past that caused them in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as you're talking, the more and more I'm thinking it might not be the right fit in terms of values.
Maybe, or we could find out.
Right.
And even the process of finding that, like, let's say, okay, so now the question on the table is, are there even enough people in this industry to support my business? Or there's the cost of finding them, whatever, however you want to break it down. But even that inquiry is going to get you where you need to go.
Right.
By wondering, okay, so the first wonder is, I wonder if there's similarly aligned values people in the financial services industry enough that A, they can admit they share my values, and B, they're willing to take action on it. Well, that's easy enough to assess. First of all, so the process is one, figure out what our values are, Two, start, what's a vehicle for which you can answer that question that is aligned with what you're great at and what you love doing. So if you like to communicate via writing, let's write about it. If you like to communicate, and only do it in a way that you feel comfortable.
Yeah. And that has been the struggle. It's a major conversion, moving from academic writing with a certain level of rigor to the online platform where I need to simplify, have something like catchphrasy. I'm getting advice to use Chat GPT, which really I have problems with. I'm just going to admit it from an ethics perspective. So, because Chat GPT will take other people's material without referencing them, so that kind of thing. So that's been a conversion. I feel like I finally have a way of doing that, at least an initial way of doing that, where I'm not going to feel like I'm selling myself out. Which,
and you don't have to dumb it down at all. You just have to choose to work with people that are in demand for that level of a higher level of understanding of how this works. A more, I want to say clinical, but a more informed, we just don't make shit up over here type of perspective, which can lead you into different industries. So that is a good thing about financial services, right? My father-in-law is a retired investment banker for Wells Fargo, and he's a good man. He's a California Republican, so we'll let him go. And there is a way of thinking when we get access to the which is really a conversation for the way the world really works, almost a more accurate, I think, description. Understanding economics and finance is a pretty powerful way to understand how humans operate in their world. There could be a demand for much more data-driven, clinical, those types of observations. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad thing. I think it's just what there is to find out. The hard work is, when you called it out earlier, is approaching it from a kind of an inquiry of how much of this needs to be technical and how much of this needs to be humanized. But inside of an inquiry for service, yeah. And I like to think of it this way: what's the easiest way for me to help people to be free to choose what I'm selling?
Can you say that? What is the easiest way
that I can empower people to be free to choose what I'm selling? And clients are not free to choose without our interference. Why?
Right.
Because of the impact that marketing and implicit bias and previous experience has on their ability to see us newly.
Okay, and I want to, so there's one other thing I think that the way I tend to look at things is the opposite of simplifying them. It's complicating them. I do think that there could be some appetite for, like, let's rethink this. Or, I mean, so it's not necessarily making things more complicated, but looking for the root cause. Diagnosing the root cause rather than treating the symptoms. And I think that having a background where I've done, this psychological research, but also, worked with groups developing research, is also a way of saying, looking at things from a radically different perspective. And I think that if you want innovation in a business, you need to have the courage to take a radically different perspective. Because if you are just doing the same thing over and over, you're not going to get any traction. You're going to become obsolete. I don't know. Anyway, I don't.
Well, that's totally valid. That's good, because now you're lighting up. Did y'all see that? So there's a stand that you're taking there, which is, look, you surround yourself by a bunch of people that say yes and that have no ability to distinguish. We talk about it in our business. Like, look, if we have a human being over here that is incapable, let's say they're a white person that's incapable of distinguishing whiteness, they're going to miss a lot of data about how to operate inside of our culture. That's just, that's what's up. Now, white supremacy scares people, and white people, my people are primarily scared by the conversation for, managing both their oppressed and oppressor identities. I work with a lot of white women, and that's what y'all a lot of times are dealing with, is where am I in the cycle? So I want to have some empathy and not come straight out and be like, look, whatever, or call that out. It's more like just operating from that there is a problem, that probably the problem is not you, person who's thinking of buying it. You're probably and the same thing with you, like you're incredibly, you know what you're talking about. And you have access to a discipline of thinking that has a lot to do with how people act. So it's more like, what are we up against inside of the market? In this case, it's just a context where what about diversity, equity, inclusivity, and justice, and how human beings actually operate hasn't trickled its way into this compartmentalized part of marketing. And that's just conditioning. There's nothing bad or wrong. It's just how it is. And if we've been conditioned in anything in our culture, it's, like gender roles and marketing. Because marketing is what they're using to condition us. Yeah. Marketing in the news. The other thing is, and I heard what you said about ChatGPT, and I applaud your stand, and I think it's confusing for a lot of us. I also hear that there's a commitment to thoroughness, which I think is distinct from making things too complicated. And I see it in your point, where it shows up for me is like, you want to know that what you're saying is true before you say it to someone, and you're not basing it solely on your lived experience. That tool, you put your own stuff in there, it can do a good job of making it easy to understand. Then you're not plagiarizing, you're just using the AI to simplify things. And I think I think there's, and it doesn't matter anyway. You can, if you want to punch out a bunch of, chat GPT content, the filters are coming like next week anyway. So nobody's going to see it. Or even if they don't filter it, it's going to, it's just going to require, another level of I think intentionality.
Right.
So you have an intentional business. I think your gut's going to be right based on your experience and who you are. And so it's just a matter of utilizing this context. Conversion comes from shared values. What's a way for me to express my shared values to prospective clients in a way that is going to make their experience of choosing yes me or no me the easiest. If you come from there, you'll get it. I'm happy to help on specifics in another session, but if you go from there, I think you'll have the right actions. Cool.
Very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that super high level. I mean, it's a challenge. The other thing I'd offer is like, and I got it really good from my coach this morning, like what you're up to is exceptional. This is not like a mediocre run-of-the-mill endeavor you're up to. Trying to do the work you're trying to do with the people you're trying to do it with, and to have a voice that's counter to the very, very, very long-standing narratives about economics and finance is extremely difficult. You can do it, but don't forget that like you're up to something big. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. You're the best. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate getting to know you in here. Thank you so much for your
Likewise. Right.
best. Cool. Tekla, what's up?
Well, listening to this talk, the word simplify is like jumping out at me. I started working with you 2.5 years ago, where I got clear on my source commitments and created some different programs and had some like ideas and visions of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I feel like I'm there, and that I've like created programs that like I love, and my clients love it, and it shows they're powerful. And it's I guess like it's the program that's starting mid-September, Be Rooted, is like a higher ticket item, like more money. So I think I am starting to work with a money therapist who is on your one of your calls here to work on money stuff. And it's how am I gonna get everyone to sign up by mid-September? I've also I had created like a 6-month more intense program, like one-on-one work. And I've just created like a 3-month summer special that I've done that in the past, and people did sign up for it. So, and I'm just about to launch that like tomorrow. It's finally all up on my website to get people working. Kind of my idea is like get people working one-on-one. Again, like old clients who people have already like talked about wanting to do my bigger program, Be Rooted, and it's now a 9-month program. And I'm also offering in-person classes and programs now at the yoga studio in near my house.
Yep.
And I just moved away from attempting to do an online community through Mighty Networks that is closing like tomorrow. That I was kind of put a ton of time and energy into. So I'm like, okay, simplify. So I feel like I have done that. I've moved to using Ad Event on my website, which is, I love it. It's so freaking easy compared to Mighty Networks for my events and ease of sharing it and everything like that. I guess, how do I simplify sharing where I'm at now? Though it's kind of going back to like it's funny, my roots, Be Rooted, my roots of like how I really like to teach and how
Yep.
I'm going to teach. I don't want to, it's kind of like also sticking to my standards and my source commitments of this is how I teach Reiki and other skills that I teach throughout this program.
Mhm.
But I kind of feel like I uh have been in a bit of a feeling the effects of the last year of
Yeah.
of putting all the time into Mighty Networks, and now I'm clear, but I was feeling really burned out recently, but now I'm
Yeah.
feeling re-energized. So I don't know where my question is. It might be around just, I don't know. Where's my question, Nate?
I got one for you.
You told
I got one
me,
for you. All right. So first question I'll ask you is there any, and I know you well, so it's really good to be in this space with you. And your sharing is so good. You're good. I don't know, any experience in the past that had a really negative effect on your life where you dumped a lot of energy into something and it didn't work out?
yes.
Yeah. So you're going to have a sensitivity to what happened with Mighty Networks. That's probably just kind of like this, you know? So just notice, and there's all of us have this where, I'm hitting my knee and then, it's a reflex. So, and I think for me, I have made some consistent mistakes in my past in this business. I mean, mistake is a strong word, but where, I'll delegate a part of the business and I don't delegate a process. And I undervalue what I know and I get out of the way and I offload it and it doesn't work. And then I do this over and over again in very creative permutations. So whenever I catch myself doing something like that again, it gets progressively more difficult for me to let myself off the hook. So if there's any similarity to things we've done in the past that haven't worked out well for us, anywhere from the level of I lost some money all the way up to trauma, there's going to be some sensitivity here. You know, you're always operating from your best intentions. And it's not, and sometimes when those intentions don't produce the results that we want, it sucks. And my coach told me today, well, you shit in one hand and wish in the other. And I was like, yeah, I got it. And there's a space for gentleness here. You learned some things, and it could have been worse.
Yeah, and it was spring equinox that I realized I had to let it go, and I've definitely done the work of letting it go, and I feel like I probably am still a little fearful though of stepping forward again. I don't know.
It sucks. It's so hard. Nobody, we don't want to be anywhere now.
We don't want what?
People don't, so anybody that was even slightly introverted doesn't leave their house very much anymore.
Right.
Right. I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, simply getting the Reiki shares that I hosted for 3 years before the pandemic, starting those up again in person. Come on, people, remember, remember this, how, and I have the such passion for community, and that's such a part of my work. And I don't know, it's how do we remind people to get them to remember? Karen and I talk about this a lot.
That's a good, but there you go. I mean, that's the question is, do I need it to inform people that, so there's three, a lot of different ways we can go about that. Is an introductory program now just like a program to get used to being back in person?
Mm-hmm.
Which
and I feel like I am offering that, just circles and groups.
Is it called out as such?
That they can do.
But is it called out as so there's a different conversation when you're saying I've created these groups because I'm committed to community like you are, and I'm noticing that as humans we're having a hard time getting back to that. Right. And so I've created these events to do that.
Right. I don't think I've named it as that, and I'm kind of doing that with my summer one-on-one program where I'm having a once a month circle So like for people to come practice being in a circle, because that's what a big part of my bigger program is. So I guess like naming that a little more clearly would be helpful.
Mhm. I mean, I'm clear you have a lot to offer in that space of what happened to us
Mhm.
and the impact that all of this COVID shit has had on our ability to interact with each other, and then what kind of healing that can happen through these multiple modalities that you use, because it's not just Reiki over there,
Right.
like a lifetime of healing work. So what does that look like? Well, that's just a couple of different lines of copy. And it's a conversation for an inquiry into, do I need to help people solve the problem of we need to learn how to be back in person together, or to heal, or to realize it's safe. I mean,
Mhm.
and that's a big trauma because it wasn't safe to be with each other.
Right. And there's also the piece too of just the whole being in the like self-care healing world of people not having prioritizing that
So that's one way to do it. The
and how
other
to
way,
remind people.
the other way is to focus on folks that are um already strong believers in Reiki or in these types of healing modalities, that are willing to take the chance, or to, just they're like, okay, I want to do this and I want to do this in person.
Mhm.
So that's also a possibility. Then we don't have to convince anyone if we just go for the people that are already ready to do it.
Right.
Mhm. And so that's no answers there, but that's the primary point of inquiry for me that I'm seeing is, okay, what's the lead domino? What's the first action here? Where inside of this conversation do I draw the line? Like, do I get into the business of helping people, getting people to pay me money to come to things to learn to be back in person, and then ask them to take on, learning how to be a Reiki practitioner? Does that make sense? Or do I just call it all out and say, look, if you're ready to, do this, the world needs a bunch of people that are bringing people together in person. And if you want to be one of those people, then let's do this.
Mhm.
You can work it from both sides.
Mhm.
It's just, and which one's the right one? Whatever you want to do. Who would you rather? What problem would you rather solve? Would you rather solve people who are afraid of being in person, that need help remembering how to be in person, or would you rather help people who are fine with being in person, who are committed to being in person, help them help other people get the healing they need?
Mhm.
Is there a clear answer?
Well, and not all my stuff is in person because that is what COVID did, is it brought me to be able to do everything virtual also.
Well, I think it's interesting, right? Because we do virtual now because it makes the most sense, and we do in person because it makes the most sense. And we're much more open to both. Well, we're much more open to online than we've been, sort of.
Right. Except those are burned out on it.
But this event is working. But this event is smaller and much more personal.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives people, it's just a different deal,
Mm-hmm.
People are not sitting in rooms passively, in my experience now. Like, and I've had to change my expectations of how that looks. So the question is like, which set of, so for me, I'm hearing, okay, so there's a set of commitments over here. They're all the same source commitments, but they're the client. So we call this the problem solution pair. Did you and I ever do this?
I'm not sure.
Well, if you don't remember, then I can go through it. So when you have the product.
Oh yeah, I think so. Go ahead though.
You like the best at what you do. I don't care. You like just exude wisdom. And there's and the way that you're willing to be vulnerable around your business stuff, for me, just I'm reminded of how much you know about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Like and you're an energetically sensitive human being and self-aware, and a person who's affected tremendous change in her own life, like big changes. So, you're not, again, an average. I don't know. Alexis said I've never been an average, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever been a normal person anyway, ever, in anything. But that's probably just my neurodivergent. I can't be separate. Anyway, I'm not going down that road. So I think it's problem solution pair. So, and which client, so the problem solution pair is like any prospective client is going to have two things to have them even enter into the conversation. One of them is going to have a problem that they're willing to identify or need, and then the other one is a solution they're willing to accept. And in one of these channels we're talking about, these are people that are self-identifying that it's harder for them to go out in public, and then the solution they're willing to accept is a program to help them be in public more or better or more better. Typically that's what we sell in consulting, is more better stuff, more better this, more better that. Or the other problem solution pair is people whose life have changed because of COVID, and they're looking for a way to not only improve their lives but improve the lives of others. And not like either or, but there's space there. So it's a question of, more importantly, like, what do you want to work with? What's the theme? What's the proper theme for this season for people? Yeah. Makes sense?
What's the proper theme for this season, you said?
Yeah, like what's the proper, or what's the, so look at this, take all the shit that's happened out. What's the proper way to talk about what you know and how it can help people in this season? Know mighty networks, know what worked in the past, know what's worked in the past or what hasn't worked, but like right now, what's the way to talk about what you can offer that's going to make it easy for people to choose yes or no? You got to get current. Oh, that's a big match.
I feel like that's what I'm doing with this like 3-month program. It's like a smaller bite to take. And instead of having to join a membership, I have a calendar with all these events and people can just join them.
I like that idea.
I think that I'm gonna start like more frequent newsletters that like have the events in them, and inviting people to come to, they can pick and choose. They don't have to be part of a membership or anything.
I love that. And you know what? And one of the things, I have two coaches, Aisla and Beth, and been working a lot. And one of them is more like a therapist, and the other one is more like an operational consultant. But they both have my fucking number. I'll tell you that, which is great most of the time. And so we got to think about, as entrepreneurs, like what are you best at? Where do you shine? It's in session, right?
Yeah.
It's in session, whether you're training, right? So the problem, and I noticed this with me too, and there may be some matching, or I may be talking to myself, I don't know, you figure it out, but like the reason that we're doing this event this way is, first of all, so that I can make a difference. Secondly, it's because this is the part of the business where I shine. And then this way people can get an idea about like how we work without taking any real risk.
Right.
Because, we used to sell this one-on-one session where people they used to want to do that, and now they don't. Well, it's scary. Who wants to be in the room with this guy they don't know or whatever? But so I think, again, I'm getting back to what is the easiest way. So, can we create content that gives people an insight into what it's like to be in those things, what it's like to be in the event, not a description of, but what it's like to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make a big difference too.
Right.
Plus, your work is hard to describe. Yeah? A lot of it works in a nonverbal way.
Right.
Well, hopefully you're not more confused now than you were before, but what are you getting?
What am I getting? I'm getting some like just I don't know. My mind is moving around a lot right now.
I got that.
I'm taking it all in. I'm
Yeah, cool. Let me
processing.
know. I mean, that's fine. What you got
I'm
is
processing.
stuff to process. Yeah, cool. Let me know, you know, what you come up with. And I think these are good wonderings. Remember, your reluctance is discernment,
Mhm.
and especially with you.
Mhm.
I remember I'm reminded of what it's like to work with you, and I would never want to be in that brain because it notices way too much shit.
Yeah. Simplify. That's my word. Simplify. That's what I got from this. Keep simplifying, Tekla.
I mean, what we know is that if you place it on the service plane, and you know, and you get like you have to have a healthy financial life in order to have integrity to ask people to do these bigger programs. That's great. And then once you're taking the action. Like you know, what has integrity is we have to win together. So if you just hold out for the optimal solution, you'll get it.
Mhm.
And I think you called it out. I went down the road like, I think, you know, are you still hung up on Mighty Networks? You're like, nope. Cool. So I think if that's the case, then it's just you're you know, looking around for that elegant solution.
Next
And
steps.
things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
Is my lived experience and the experience of pretty much every client that I'm working with right now. It's a good time to start a business.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a restart right now.
Yeah. What is it? What would it? Oh, that's the. I mean, I'll just give you the coaching I got this morning. So what does it take? What would it take to be to see the business newly?
Mm-hmm.
Like who you are right now, what is right now, and what people need right now.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a big difference. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, though. You're the best.
Thank you, Nate. You're the best. I
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. It's helpful to just get validation and clarity and to remember to simplify.
Yeah. And sometimes I think to even inside of this, like sometimes they're not going to figure it out right now.
Right.
I'm glad I didn't know how much of this was just pure perseverance.
Mhm.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Right. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I know.
Perseverance.
I never would have done it if I'd have known what I was into.
Right.
Benefit
Thank
of
you.
the
Thanks
benefit
for
of-
being here, Karen.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's great to be in the space with you. Alexis, thank you very much. And everyone, thank you so much for being here and watching.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you,
I'm going to
Yeah.
stop the recording, but not in the session. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you at the next one.